What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Broku no Hero, and holy crap, a new race has been finally revealed in Black Clover, and that is the Dwarves. We already have humans, we have elves, and now we have dwarves. So obviously, guys, this video is going to contain manga spoilers. Yeah, I kind of spoiled you already by saying that there's dwarves, but honestly, guys, sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm excited. You're probably going to be spoiled anyways if you watch my anime-only videos, because people are going to comment that, and people love to try and spoil it for others, but guys, this is insane. Charmy is half human, half dwarf. This explains a lot. And now, guys, I'm going to go through and explain dwarves to you because dwarves are from Norse mythology. I am a Norse mythology buff. Over the last year, I have read about 5 books written by historians on Norse mythology. I have read the book of the Asta, which is basically the Norse mythology religion. People who still practice it, they made basically their own version of the Bible, and I read that as well. And the reason why I like Norse mythology so much, and I've researched it so much, is because I'm writing my own comic book right now, which involves Norse mythology. But anyways, guys, before I get into really explaining the dwarves and why this is so important for the world of Black Clover, people are saying that this is an ass pull for Charmy. Guys, this has been foreshadowed since potentially the very beginning in the early chapters of chapter 2, where people are talking about how this person might be Charmy in her full power form. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, because it shows a picture with her next to the other Black Bulls, and I feel like they would all know about Charmy having this form. I don't see that being the thing. I still think that kid is probably the vice captain, but still, we see in the Water Temple arc, when Charmy fights the Eye of the Midnight Sun members, they feel a weird sensation from Charmy, that there's a beast inside of her magic, and there was this whole time. Then we see after Gauche attacks the Black Bull's base, Charmy has some ketchup on her face, and her magic is getting amped so much that they think that she is an elf, but she's really just mad because somebody destroyed her garden. So when she got mad about her food, had elven level mana. And now finally, she tries to feed Rill some food. He nearly kills her and also destroys the food, which makes her mad. And that reveals her true form, where she is now physically bigger than before and reveals that her sheep is really a wolf. So this entire time, Charmy's sheep was just a wolf in sheep's clothing. Really cool symbology here from Yuki Tabata, that the whole time that Charmy was a wolf in sheep's clothing. So in this state, we find out that Charmy is half human, half dwarven, and she did not even know about it. This was the wolf telling her that. And so she has this weird wolf, which I don't know what it is and why it can talk to her. It seems to be a part of her magic, which is weird. And also, guys, hybrids in Black Clover between 2 different races can use 2 different magic types. Charmy has her cotton magic, and she has meal magic, which means she can eat the magic that anybody throws at her, and she takes that magic and she absorbs it pretty much. She eats it. She's like Ladros, not as OP though, because she has to eat it. In this form, Charmy probably has elven level mana, because like I said before, when she got mad, they thought she was an elf. When she was nearly dying, before she was even fully put into her fully powered form, everybody was freaking out about her power. We do know that Elf Rill, I believe this is Lyra, he recognized this mana from eons ago. That is because this is Dwarven mana, and the dwarves probably interacted with the elves, or the elves interacted with the dwarves. And basically, we know that Mimosa somehow knows about the dwarves, about the stories of her grandfather. So in Mimosa's vision of what they look like, the dwarf looked like a midget in stature, had a beard, was living in a cave, and also had an axe. And this is a quote from Mimosa. I believe they were a race from long ago that harbored special powers much like elves. So Dwarven mana is pretty much directly compared to Elven mana several times, and also stated by Mimosa. So just based on all of that, we know that Charmy is very powerful. Yes, she absorbed Elf Rill's mana to fight him. She basically used magic reinforcement and punched him, and looked like she probably did some damage, but the fact that she has Elven level mana, and is likely stronger now because she has a bigger body, and also has 2 magic types, meal magic and cotton magic. Makes her a pretty powerful being in this series, maybe even captain level, which means the Black Bulls are really stacked right now. Alright guys, so I'm pretty much going to go through my knowledge of dwarves in Norse mythology and how that will be important for Black Clover, and how dwarves might even be a more powerful race than the elves in Black Clover. So I have a few books. I'm going to go read over these passages from these books. The first passage is from the book called The Viking Spirit, an introduction to Norse mythology and religions by Daniel McCoy. I will leave a link in the description below to buy this book, and these are from pages 54 and 55, where he gives a passage about the dwarves. I'm going to read this passage, and will provide some very interesting information of the dwarves and how powerful they are. The dwarves, or Verger in Old Norse, were the master miners, blacksmiths, and craftspeople of the Vikings' mythical world. Among the many matchless treasures they forged were Frey's ship, Skidbladnir, which always had a fair wind and could be folded up and carried in a small bag. Freya's necklace, Brisingamen, the most beautiful of all pieces of jewelry. Odin's spear, Gungnir, which always hit its target. His arm ring, Dropnir, from which another 8 rings dropped every 9th night. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, the famous crusher of giants. Yes, the dwarves made Mjolnir Thor's hammer. And they also made golden hair of Thor's wife, Sif. Dwarves lived underground, often in caves beneath mountains, the places where the metals and gems with which they worked could be found. They made a point to stay in their subterranean halls, or if they had to come up into the world above, they did so at night. Being above ground during the day had a dire consequence for them. The touch of sunlight turned them to stone. The dwarves were exceptionally well versed in cosmological and magical lore. Iron Age blacksmiths were often thought to possess great magical powers. The ability to transform metal so dramatically was thought to depend on such abilities, and the Norse seem to have perceived the dwarves in this light. They were also noted for their physical strength. So dwarves have superhuman physical strength level, so that'll be important to talk about in a bit. Story reports that 4 dwarves, Nordri, north, Sudri, south, Austri, east, and Vestri, west, held up the sky in 4 corners, which, as the dwarves' names imply, were placed at the 4 cardinal points. While the elves played a large role in religious practice but little in recorded myth, the dwarves played a large role in myth but little in recorded religious practice. In fact, despite the myth's portrayal of them as well disposed towards humans and gods, there's no evidence that the dwarves were ever worshipped. Their appearance is never described in the Old Norse sources. The modern idea that they were especially small in size comes from the medieval folklore. There's nothing to suggest that the idea existed during the Viking Age. Now, a lot of what this guy says is true, and so the ending part is partially wrong in what he said. There is some evidence to describe that dwarves are actually small beings, or maybe appear to small. They could still be giant in stature, but have the body type of a midget, which is kind of like what would be in Avengers Infinity War. The dwarf in that movie, he is a giant in size, but in his stature was like modeled off of a midget. Dwarves are primarily portrayed as a male race. We don't really get female portrayals in the texts. Now, that doesn't mean that females don't exist. We know that dwarves can have sex, as Freya, Odin's wife, was a whore, and she slept around a lot, and yes, she even had a orgy with dwarves in the Nordic texts. So, they can have sex. So, just a fun fact. Now, I'm going to read one more. This is a poem from the Poetic Edda, which is it's kind of like Norse mythology's version of the Bible. And this is translated from Jackson Crawford, who is a great philosopher, great scholar and historian of the Norse mythology, and has a lot of good work. I'll leave a link in the description to buy his book down below. And this is from the Voluspa, a poem, and this is stanzas 9 through 16, which involve the dwarves and their creation. Then all the gods went to their thrones, those holy, holy gods, and came to a decision. They would make the lord of the dwarves out of Ymir's blood and his rotting limbs. Ymir was like the first being in Norse mythology. He was a giant, and then eventually his descendants, Odin and his brother, killed Ymir, and they basically created the 9 worlds out of Ymir's body. So this is like a solar system sized being. Ymir was huge. Then they made Motsognir. He was the lord of all the dwarves. And next day they made Durin. They made many man-like creatures, dwarves of the earth, and Durin named them. Ni and Nithi, Northri and Suthri, Ostri and Vestri, Alfof and Dvalin, Bivor, Bavor, Bombor, Nori, An and Honor, I, Mjolvitnir, Veg and Gandalf, Vindolf, Thrain, Thek and Thorin, Thror, Vitten Lit, Narnjarth, Regan and Rasvith. Now I've named the dwarves correctly. So there's a bunch of other names in here. I'm not going to go through them. That'd be way too much and way too long. But yeah, from Norse mythology, the dwarves were created through Ymir's blood and his rotting limbs. Originally, they were like maggots in size. And like I said, this source says that dwarves were not short. This source says that they were man-like little creatures. So there is evidence saying that they were never small. There is evidence saying that they were small. It's hard to tell because, unfortunately, the Christians tried to erase the Norse mythology, and when they couldn't, they tried to embellish it by putting Christian influences on it. So a lot of what we know about Norse mythology, some of it we know is concrete, others of it we don't really know, just like how dark elves are probably an embellishment, and they're really just dwarves, because we don't have a lot of information on dark elves, and dark elves seem to be somewhat like demons. Now, I'm going to go over why this is insanely important, because dwarves in Black Clover have similar amounts of mana to elves. Not only this, but they're noted in the texts of Norse mythology to have supreme physical strength, which means they might have elven mana, but physical strength that could like surpass or rival Yami and Asta. That combination would be absolutely deadly. And not only that, but the dwarves are known for their weapons, how well they make them. Now, of course, like the texts say, they make other things besides weapons too. They make vehicles, they make jewelry, they make all of that. But weapons are their #1 craft. So imagine dwarven weapons being introduced into Black Clover. That would be insane, and it would be a game changer, because what if they make these very powerful weapons and imbue mana into it? Therefore, a very weak person in Black Clover could be strong with a dwarven sword, or a dwarven axe, or a dwarven shield. Or a very strong person could become even stronger. Now, dwarven weapons are overpowered in the Norse mythology. Mjolnir is absolutely insanely powerful. And guys, so in Norse mythology, the Aesir who live in Asgard, Aesir are the gods of Thor, Odin, Balder, Freya. They have their own weapons created as well. They're Asgardian weapons. They are strong as well. And like I've said in I think a different video, a Asgardian sword was so strong it locked the jaw of Fenrir, the wolf that was strong enough to eat the sun. But dwarven weapons would literally dwarf the power of the Asgardian weapons. So that's how powerful, just dwarven weapons are. So we have the dwarves who have mana that rivals elves. They have supreme physical strength. And based on this lore, they might have the strength of Yami or Asta, but have elven level of mana. And also, they might have weapons that are just absolutely overpowered. So I think that dwarves could very, very potentially be the most powerful race in Black Clover. Now, I know the demons are potentially powerful and there are gods, but I mean, dwarves, if they have elven mana, physical strength of Asta and Yami, and their weapons, they are probably unstoppable. Now, what's important to note is that the dwarves don't come out during the day, so they'd be hard to find at night. Although, we don't know if this is going to be in Black Clover, because Charmy is half dwarf, and I do believe she's been out during the day. So, dwarves can shapeshift into animals. That's one of the things they're known for in the Norse mythology. There was a very famous dwarf called Otter. He was literally an otter. He could transform into an otter, and he was killed by, I believe, a god, or one of the heroes of the sagas, because he thought it was just an otter, not a dwarf. So that could be a way of why the dwarves haven't been seen in a long time in Black Clover, because they're only out at night, and they can shapeshift into animals, so you would never see them. And also, a very, very likely place of where the dwarves would reside in the world of Black Clover is the Diamond Kingdom, based on the fact that the dwarves are miners, they live in mountains, and they live underground, and they need to find gems and diamonds as stated in the sacred texts. Well, Diamond Kingdom seems to be the perfect place for that. And there is evidence showing that this is actually happening because hybrids of dwarves and humans can use 2 magic types. Mars and Fauna can use 2 magic types. They reside from the Diamond Kingdom, who are doing experiments. Were dwarves involved in this experiment? Did they try and cross species DNA, making the DNA of Mars and Fauna half dwarven as well? And that's why they can use 2 magic powers? And would really make sense that Morris is doing experiments involving dwarves and humans, because dwarves likely reside in the Diamond Kingdom based on their lore and based on the lore of the Diamond Kingdom. That would be a really interesting thing and would make it even more possible, because everybody's saying there's going to be a Diamond Kingdom arc or saga. And if Charmy is a dwarf and the dwarves are being tortured and experimented on in the Diamond Kingdom, that would make for a great story and a great reason to go there. It brings back Mars, Fauna, Fonzel, and Ladros back into the story of going against the Diamond Kingdom. There are still generals that we need to meet. There is also the potential king of the Diamond Kingdom, and then there's Morris. So there's a lot to do with the Diamond Kingdom. And remember, guys, everybody's wondering what's going to be the next big enemy after the Elves. The Elves are too strong. What are they going to do? Well, you have the Diamond King's experiments that are probably experimenting on the dwarves right now, so that could be the next enemy. Combining science with humans and dwarves, maybe even using their dwarven weapons, the Diamond Kingdom could easily surpass the power of the Elves. That's my thought, guys, though. This is all absolutely insane. Cannot believe that Charmy was half dwarf, and she is extremely powerful, and I really was just shocked last night. But yeah, guys, hope you guys enjoyed and learned this information that I gave you guys from Norse mythology. Again, I will leave links down below to these 2 different works of historians. They'll be linked down below. But this is a huge step forward for Black Clover in their lore. Now, there's so much Norse mythology already represented. What's going to be next? There's humans, elves, dwarves. Dwarves and elves originated from Norse mythology. Is there also going to be Jotuns, which are the giants, even though they're really not giants? That's just the English word equivalent. And also, is Asta going to fight Thor at some point? Like, this could be absolutely insane. But can't wait for the next chapter, guys. Don't forget to read the damn manga, because you won't know any of this insane shit unless if you do. But hope you guys do all have an amazing day. Plus